Hey everyone, it's Jacob here with another 5-minute leader, and today I am coming to you from the Santa Barbara area, and you'll notice there's a dress hanging behind me, and that is because I am here to help my wife Blake. She's filming a course for LinkedIn that's going to be coming out in the next few months on customer experience. Very, very exciting. And she's out there getting her hair and makeup done. I'm here in the green room, and I thought, you know what? I got some time to kill. Why not make a video? And so today's video is going to be all about this idea of first principles thinking. And you may be familiar with this concept, but if not, this is something that has been around for a while, but really pioneered and championed by Elon Musk. And the idea of first principles thinking, and especially why it's so relevant for leaders, is that it breaks things down to their core parts. And I jotted down a couple examples here that I want to go over with you in just a few minutes. But it really takes this concept, and this is something a lot of leaders struggle with, right? We are forced to make a decision, we're forced to analyze something, and a lot of things get thrown our way. And sometimes, because there's so much information and so much noise, we struggle with making the right decision, we struggle with looking at data, we're just bombarded with stuff. So first principle is really just taking a step back and back and back and back and back, and really just getting to the core. What are those first principles, or as my dad likes to say, the root cause of something before you start looking at all those different variables. So I want to walk you through an example that I jotted down here. So let's first break down what this idea of first principle thinking is. There's probably different ways that you can think about it. I have these 5 steps which I think are pretty applicable and practical for you. So number 1 is identifying the problem clearly. Now, in this case, let's say that we are trying to improve productivity or increase productivity inside of our organizations, but we don't want to increase our stress levels. Okay, so that's the very core first principle problem, the challenge that we're looking to solve. Next is let's break that down into fundamental principles. Again, trying to increase productivity without increasing stress. Let's break it down to what those fundamental principles are. And what that means is understanding, well, what are the key factors? What are the key elements that influence productivity? And this might include teamwork, the efficiency of processes. It might include incentive structures that you have. It might include the alignment that employees have as far as their skills with the work that they're doing. These are all some of the core fundamental principles that would influence or impact productivity. So next we go to step 3, which is challenging the assumptions that we have. And I want to go through just a couple of them here. I won't go through this full list that I jotted down, but let's start off with motivation. So is there an assumption, for example, that motivation primarily comes from some sort of a monetary structure that you have? And so perhaps if that's the assumption that you have inside of your organization, maybe you start thinking, well, are there other factors, other elements that we can use to motivate employees beyond just a monetary structure? For example, having a greater sense of purpose and meaning and impact. Having the ability to grow and learn, to solve complex problems and tackle unique challenges. So maybe, you take that assumption that you've had, that motivation is primarily tied to an incentive structure like dollars and cents, and you rethink it. And again, you could see why this is important, because if you give employees that additional incentive, that non-traditional incentive, such as purpose and meaning and growth and opportunity, you could see why that might improve the productivity of employees without increasing their stress levels. So another assumption, efficiency of processes. So are the current processes that you have in place optimal? And you might think they're optimal because they've always been there. It's always been done that way. I mean, a very classic example, when you go to a doctor or you go to a bank, they have you fill out information, then you get transferred to somebody else, and then you repeat that same information. Now, we all know that's not an efficient or productive process, but it's there because it's always been there, and nobody challenges that assumption. Another one that you might want to think about is task alignment. So is there an assumption that the tasks that employees are working on best aligned with the skills that they have? Now, oftentimes we assume that because an employee has a certain job description, they're in a certain role, it automatically means that they should be doing any projects or tasks in that role. But one of the things that I've talked about in this video series is that skills are more important than jobs. So maybe the assumption should be is that just because you're in a certain role doesn't mean that the skills that you have can only be applied for that role. So maybe there are a lot of employees that you have inside your company who are working on things where they're not really utilizing the skills to the best of their ability. And so maybe there are other opportunities inside the company where those skills can be better applied. And another challenge here might be the work environment. So is the work environment really suited to improving productivity? So for example, the leadership style, the corporate culture, the spaces in which employees work. Now I know I talked about a couple things here, so let me just recap where we are. So again, the first thing that we looked at is identifying the problem clearly, which is we want to improve productivity without increasing stress. The second thing, we broke it down to those fundamental principles, things like motivation, efficiency of process, aligning skills with tasks, and work environment as all factors that could impact and influence productivity without increasing stress levels. Then what we did is we took all of those and we challenged the assumptions that we have. So is money the primary factor for employee motivation? Are our processes efficient as far as how employees are actually working? Are the skills or is the work that employees are doing best aligned with the skills that they have? And what about the environment in which employees are working? So next, after you've challenged those assumptions, you rebuild from the ground up. So you challenge those assumptions, now you put in a different structure. So for example, maybe you redesign your reward structure. For example, Google has done this, 3M has done this, where maybe you spend a certain percentage of your time working on passion projects that you have. Maybe the incentives are much more focused on teams instead of on individuals. So again, think about the different incentive structures that you can put into place. Optimizing processes. Maybe you're implementing something like lean or agile. Maybe you are getting rid of the duplication of work that employees are constantly doing to make life easier for them, to make processes and the way that they get work done more efficient. Maybe you do a skill-based assessment. Maybe you implement some sort of a technology where employees can better be assessed on the skills that they have and then matched up to different roles and projects and tasks that they should be working on. We're seeing a big shift in this space as far as internal mobility. Instead of organizations just letting go lots of employees, what they're trying to do is they're trying to see where else can those employees be applied inside the organization, so internal talent mobility. The work environment, maybe you implement flexible work environments, maybe you implement new office redesigns. We're here at the LinkedIn offices here in Santa Barbara. Employees are given access to healthy food, they have a game room, they have a fitness center. I'm sitting here in a green room, as you can see. So the work environment is very conducive towards improving and increasing productivity, but also you can tell that they try very hard to decrease the stress levels. They make it so that your breakfast, your lunches, your dinners are taken care of. You have a game room where you can relax if you need to, socialize with friends. They have a coffee bar, a wellness center, a fitness area, so that you can take care of your mental, your physical health, reducing those stress levels, but also, again, being productive. And then step 5 from all of this is you amplify, you apply it, and you adapt it. So you take these new solutions, maybe you implement them in pilot projects, you see how they go, and then you get feedback and you adapt as necessary. And that's really what this idea of first principles comes down to. So let me walk you through, and I know this is a little bit of a longer video, but let me just quickly summarize what those steps are again. So number 1 is identify the problem clearly. For you, the problem might be around culture. It might be around productivity. It might be around who knows what, but identify what that problem is clearly. Number 2, break it down into those fundamental principles. So what are the factors that are impacting that problem? In our case, it was productivity, and so we asked the question of, well, what are factors that can influence productivity? Step 3, you can put into place all the assumptions that you have around what impacts those things. So it's money, processes, etc., and then challenge those assumptions. Maybe it's not just about money. Maybe it's not just about this. It's not just about that. And what are other things that you can do instead? Number 4, you rebuild from the ground up. So you challenge those assumptions, You get rid of them, you put in the new structure in place, and then you test it out, you implement it, and then you collect feedback, you apply, and you adapt as needed. This is something that Elon Musk has done repeatedly in every single one of his companies, whether it's with Tesla, whether it's with X, whether it is with SpaceX, regardless of what it is. This is the foundation that Elon Musk operates with. He goes in there, he tries to identify the problem that he has, and he goes through these steps to rebuild and adapt. And as you can see, it's been very successful in every organization that he has been a part of. So all of this is to say, try out this approach of first principles thinking for yourself. Whenever you're confronted with a problem, something that you're looking to tackle, maybe you have a new project that you're trying to roll out and you're struggling with it. And so identify what that problem is. What are the factors, again, that could be impacting why that project is not rolling out? Challenge those assumptions, put in a new structure in place, and adapt. Maybe it's around improving employee engagement. Maybe it's around growing the business. Whatever it is, take a step back and start with those first principles, challenging those assumptions. I think this is a very, very useful framework. So let me know what you think. Have you tried this inside of your organization? Are you familiar with first principles thinking? I'd love to hear any stories or examples. And of course, if you have any topics that you want to see me cover in this video series on the 5-Minute Leader, you can always either respond to this email, leave a comment, or send me an email if you need to, jacob@thefutureorganization.com. That's it for me. I'm going to go now into the studio and do some fun pictures and videos of Blake recording her course. Hope you have a wonderful day wherever in the world you are. See you soon.